Hi everyone, it's Sam Gray. So I wanted to start my screencast off by showing you my classroom that I designed on Classroom Architect. I'm kind of in a unique situation, I guess, for lack of a better word. Kind of in a bit of a unique situation in my classroom because not this past year, the 2019-2020 school year, but the previous school year, I and another teacher were allowed to pilot flexible seating. So I kind of already have some of the seats and tools that were referred to in our reading as far as like having something other than a desk for my students to sit in. I have like bean bags and like some like cushiony chairs and like some floor seats and some just like other obscure seating that isn't necessarily a desk. So I kind of was able to check that off of my list as far as creating my blended environment. But the other thing that I wanted to address was a lot of the reading, especially the blog posts that we read for this week. They encouraged donations or like asking for donations or setting up like a donors choose type of website. We are not actually allowed to do that at my school. And in my district, it's against one of our school board policies. So I kind of just chuckled as I was reading that because I was like, yeah, that would be great. And I know that there would be a lot of parents who would be on board and who would definitely help out. We are not allowed to do that at my school. So we are limited in how we can actually create this space outside of desks. And when I say we, I mean teachers in my district. Because again, I'm fortunate and in a little bit of a different position. But anyway, so I just wanted to say all that first, because the classroom that I designed is similar to the classroom that I already have. There are definitely, do not get me wrong, there are definitely differences. But ideally, I would be able to create what I put in this picture here. But I already have some of it. So I'll just start here, kind of a right to left thing. So I put a fridge in here because I actually have a fridge in this corner of my classroom and it does sit right behind my desk. So in my classroom, the door is over here when you first walk in, um, on the bottom right-hand corner here. So door is here. My desk is in the top right corner. I am not at my desk a whole lot. It's more of just like housing for my materials and things. But that's where my desk is, and I'm more just there when I'm doing like during my planning period and my lunch. Um, I'm going to show you things that actually are in my classroom, and then show you what I did differently. So this corner over here in my classroom, this back wall over here, I didn't put anything there because there wasn't anything for like bulletin boards. But this whole back wall here is bulletin boards and my chalkboard. So right where I do my main instruction and my small group, when I do small group instruction, all of the information, the pertinent information that my students are going to need is going to be right on this wall behind me, because I do my teaching from this area of the room, my small group instruction, so everything would be right behind me right here. This also says shelves on the back wall here and on the left wall. I don't actually have shelves there, but again, I didn't have anything to illustrate bulletin boards, so I just put shelves there instead. So these are actually where bulletin boards are, and I wanted those pictured because our reading tells us that students should be centered somewhere, seated somewhere where they can access information. Those posters that we created, the tech tips, the troubleshooting, things like that, they could be posted on these bulletin boards, and that's where my student centers are. So I wanted to show that to show like, hey, these are actually already exist, and this is where I have my information. So that's what those shelves are. Now, my blended model that I'm considering is station rotation. 3 stations, a collaborative station, a teacher-led station, and an independent station. My collaborative station would be 2 tables, a round table and a rectangular table. And I chose this because I already have a round table and a rectangular table. I do not have the cool rugs, and I'm not allowed to put tape on my floor in my classroom. But maybe I'll find one at Goodwill someday. But I do have the round table and I do have the student table, and I do use those for collaboration. So this one I was able to kind of create. I chose 2 because my collaborative groups are typically a little bit bigger than like my teacher led and my independent. So they're actually like 2 small collaborative groups. So that's why I have 2 stations for them to sit here. My independent station, I have 2 ways that I allow independent work to happen. So independent work, students can use flexible seating for independent work. So that's like the chair, the sofa, the chair over here. I don't actually have a sofa, though I would love one. But I do have like those non-desk seats, those non-traditional seats. So students can choose different seats that they would sit in for independent. However, if a student is habitually off task or struggles to get their work completed in a flexible seat, I actually have a flexible seating contract that they sign. They are not allowed to use the flexible seats anymore, and then they have to go to a desk, which is what I have here. Now you'll notice that the desks are turned so that the area that they actually sit their work on is facing the back of the room. And I do that on purpose. When students are working on their devices independently, I actually make them face their screens toward me so that I can see what they are doing. That is also something that our reading mentioned, that we need to be in an area where we can see our students. And we know that technology can be tempting for them. So I put them in a position where not only I can see them, but I can also see their devices. That leads me to my teacher-led station and where I will be sitting. I don't have a kidney table. I would love one. We only have one in our entire school. But I do have a round table up here that I use for my teacher directed up in the front of my classroom. But a kidney table, I would like it a lot more. So the kidney table I have up here, students would be sitting around it. I would be back behind it. And then this one allows me to have all of my students here with my teacher directed. 2 allows them to have access to all of the information that's behind me here. And 3 also allows me to see everybody else who is working in the room. I have this extra section of desks over here because I always have extra desks or extra empty seats in my classroom in case a student needs to be removed and put into a section closer to me for a period of time until they can regroup. So the issues that I ran into and that I continue to run into with flexible seating, one of the main issues was in the reading. It was said that we needed to have a group area where students can receive direct instruction. That was my biggest issue with moving to like station rotations and flexible seating, was that I didn't have enough room in my classroom to have both flexible seating and traditional seating. So I've kind of had to get creative with that, where students just kind of maybe have to turn their desk or turn their seat or something like that in case I'm giving direct instruction. But otherwise, I think what I came up with was pretty good. Again, I don't get to like crowd fund any equipment or furniture or anything like that. But I'm making do with what I have, and I think it's working out so far. So this is my classroom, my mock classroom. Now I want to take you to my teaching tool, which is called Teaching Tolerance. So Teaching Tolerance is a website that basically has lesson plans, learning paths, reading materials, and information about all kinds of different subjects regarding tolerance. I chose this for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's a really cool site that has a lot of great resources and information. And two, it's incredibly relevant. My students are in 8th grade and they often need to be taught tolerance. So I just thought that this was something that just really stuck out to me as soon as I saw it on the list of digital tools. So I want to walk you through this as well as talk about how it relates to uh, recognizing good digital content. So first of all, it's just called Teaching Tolerance, tolerance.org. This is what you see when you get here. So these are basically like their trending stories. If you scroll down, there are more stories. You can share things, you can get updates. And then if you scroll farther down, they have their topics that they cover. So you can go specifically into a topic, or you can go back up to the top here and click through these different areas. What's really cool is that when you sign up for Teaching Tolerance, it's a free sign up, first of all. And when you sign up for it, you can actually get their free print magazine that they send out twice a year. So I am signed up for that. They can send it to your school. So then you can have a hard copy of a lot of these great resources and great texts that students can have in your classroom. So that's really cool. So I'll just walk you through this quick, and then we'll talk about whether or not it is good digital content. So first, you have your classroom resources, and I'm going to talk about a lot of these more in depth. But you have your classroom resources, your professional development. This is about their publication, and then this button here is awesome. This is the Build a Learning Plan. There would be an option up here to join if you don't have an account or to log in. So as far as good digital content, first of all, graphics. It's obviously got graphics. These graphics pertain directly to the content in each of these links. So graphics for sure. Learning paths has learning paths. It wouldn't necessarily be something that a student could go on here and figure out themselves. Though if you have like some higher level students, like 11th or 12th grade students, they could probably do it. If you go to classroom resources and lessons, you could just say like, okay, go to Teaching Tolerance and find a lesson and complete the activity. But it is written out like a lesson plan, and there may be some jargon in there that they may not understand. But that, as far as learning plans for them, it wouldn't necessarily be something that they could do independently, but you can build a learning path or a learning plan, which I think is super, super cool. So what we can do here is, I'm just going to try to go through this as quickly as I can. So you name your learning path, select your grade level, and then you can select which social justice domain you want. And this will help. Basically, at the end of this, they're going to come up with lessons for you and texts. So I can say, how does where we live influence our view of society? And then I can choose my topics. So maybe I'm talking about class or bullying and bias. Okay. And then what that does is that it takes that information that I just put in and it says, okay, we found 60 texts that are going to fit your plan. And then I can add them to plan, which is really, really cool. And then I can also come down here and I can actually decide what I want my students to do with that. Do I want them to write or do I want them to do something? The do something tasks are a little bit more involved, and they have more like activities as opposed to just responding. And then it says you've also got 25 tasks that fit your plan. Here's some that you can add. So maybe I want them to use argumentative skills. That's a unit that I teach. And then I can also select my teaching strategies. So maybe I want them focusing on vocabulary specifically, or close reading is huge in my class. So I would want them to focus on close and critical reading. And then you saw it just kind of, it went from 25 to 7 teaching strategies. So now I can add this information to my plan. I'm going to select my subject, which is reading and language arts. I don't have any notes. and then I'm going to save my plan. So learning paths, absolutely. Okay, so I can look at my learning plan now, and it just wrote a lesson plan for me. So I would go in here and I would be able to see basically what my lesson plan is. And I can make it public, and I can share it. And it's super cool. So here's my text, here's my teaching strategy, and here's what they're doing. So it's really, really cool. Now, they also have learning plans and lessons already pre-done for you. So if you don't want to select your own, they already have one. Okay, so that's learning paths. Interactive elements, you've seen that. I can scroll, I can hover, I can click on anything. So definitely interactive elements. Assessment elements, they do have student tasks like you saw. They have things that can be graded, assignments that can be done. So they do have them. They are more application though than like multiple choice and fill in the blank. But they definitely measure higher order thinking. User interface, it's got pretty intuitive navigation. It took me a couple of clicks to figure out like what did they mean by learning plans. But as far as navigation goes, it's pretty easy to figure out. Adaptive engines, the data that's collected isn't, it's more data from us than from the kids. So it's not necessarily like tracking their answers on things, because the tasks that they would do here, I may have them write this in a journal or something. So it's not necessarily tracking data to personalize the learning for them, but I can personalize learning paths for them based on the data that I get. The interoperability, it seems to flow pretty seamlessly. The activity for cognitive load, the activities and assessments in each learning path. You saw that it kind of took a little while to get to the learning path, but then you're only left with three things: your text, your strategy, and your task. So it does not seem to be cognitively overloading. Data collection, like I said, it doesn't necessarily collect data from them, but it gives us data to collect from them through those tasks. The self-paced, this is an area where I think it probably falls short. I would not be able to send a student to this website and say, go do this. I would probably need written out instructions for them to walk them through it step by step, because this is going to read like a lesson plan, and they're not necessarily going to know how to use that. And then universal design for learning. It has some UDL capabilities, but I didn't see anything for like a speech to text, or like the I cannot think of what they're called right now. When you get the picture and it tells you in words what the picture is. So overall I really like this site. I think it has a lot of the good digital content on it. There are definitely some areas where it falls short, mostly with that student independence. But overall, I think it's a really good site. I think that it could be turned into independent work for students, or even if it was just go on to their website and find a text that you want to read, that a student could do very easily on their own. I've got a ton of texts right here because I just clicked on student text. So I like it. I recommend it. It's definitely something that I'm going to use in my classroom.